You're listening to Cowboy Logic with Jason Forby, a message of grace and hope.
All right, everybody's good? Life's just been transformed. It's just awesome, and we want everybody to experience it. That's what's wrong with us. We just believe this stuff. And it's partly because that He lifted condemnation and guilt and shame and sin consciousness off of us and gave us life and life with God, to where now the veil's removed. We can see who God really is. And my goodness, seeing who God really is the most life-changing thing you could ever experience. Now you can receive righteousness. Righteousness is a free gift. Holy cow, how many people this morning are sitting in church somewhere trying their hardest to be holy, failing miserably, I might add. Yeah, and then he's like, what? He showed us that, well, sin was put on Jesus. His righteousness was put on you. It's a free gift. Romans 5:17, those that receive the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness will reign in life. Reign in life. See what I'm saying? So it's righteousness is a free gift. You're now counted among the righteous. There's no sin on your record. It's as if you never broke the law. It's as if you never ate from the wrong tree. As far as heaven's concerned, it responds to you in the same exact way that it responds to Jesus. As far as heaven's concerned, there's no difference between you and Jesus. Man, now that's good news. So now then we're like, well, okay, wow. Mind blown, right? What does that mean for us now? We get to live life as a son of God, spending the rest of our life discovering who He really is and what He's really like. And so what happens now that our identity is kind of starting to be formed from that place of condemnation and guilt, and all that stuff is taken off of your heart, sin conscious. It's like you just come alive and things just happen like never before. And it's like without all that stuff on your heart, now faith comes alive. Faith is an awesome, powerful thing, and faith is so just so good. I love faith. I consider myself a faith man, and so I think it's a big part of it. Anytime someone has taken some sort of principle and made it religious and got legalistic with it, then if we're not careful, grace people would say, well, we can't entertain any of that because we don't want to be legalistic. But what happens is you throw the whole principle away instead of pulling the principle into grace and letting it come alive to you. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying just because faith got turned into a work and another religious deal doesn't mean you just throw it away because now we're just grace people. Oh no, by grace you're saved through faith. It's like, so I want to know about this faith, right? So let me just read. I'm going to read Francois' deal. We've been reading this about every week, but it's so good, right? This is the Mirror Bible, the Mirror translation. It's kind of a newer translation, and it's actually a work in progress, not even finished. James 1 says this: temptations and contradictions come in different shapes, sizes, and intervals. Their intention is always to suck you into their energy field. However, my friends, your joy in who you know you are leads you out triumphantly every time. Here is the secret. Joy is not something you have to fake. It is the fruit of what your faith knows to be true about you. It's what your faith knows to be true about you. Do you know that your faith knows things? Your faith knows something. Here's the secret. Joy is not something you have to fake. It is the fruit of what your faith knows to be true about you. Somebody say, my faith. You know that the proof of faith results in a persuasion that remains constant in contradiction. Steadfastness provides you with a constant, consistent environment, and so patience prevails and proves your perfection. Proves your perfection, how entirely whole you are and without any shortfall. The only thing you could possibly lack is wisdom. However, make your request in such a way that you draw directly from the source. God is the origin and author of wisdom. He intertwines your thoughts with good judgment. His gifts are available to all without regret. Your request, listen to this, your requests give voice to faith. Your requests give voice to faith. You know why I see, this is just a side note, why I see a lot of people do without is because we got so religious that we don't even know that we contain the power to even make a choice, to have a request. Right? We just be religious and say, well, whatever God's will be for me, that's what I want. You know, you got to have a will so that faith can carry it out. You have a request. You make a decision. You have a desire. Faith carries that thing out. Your requests give voice to faith. If you have no request, faith has no voice. Faith is the stabilizing factor. Otherwise, you become driven by emotions that get out of control like rough seas tossed by tempest winds. Listen to this. A haphazard request makes it impossible to interpret God's wisdom accurately. Someone of two opinions remains jittery in all their judgment and seems always lost for direction. All right? You got it? Let's see. Now let's read a little. Jesus cursed a fig tree. Remember that story? And the next day they come by there and the thing's withered up and dried up and dead, and they're all like, whoa, what in the world? And so whenever they saw that, they said, look, you know, and Jesus said this, have faith in God. You guys remember that? Have faith in God. But I looked into it. It's actually translated wrong. Because we could say have faith in God. Well, okay, right? But that's not what he actually said. Jesus said to them, have the faith of God. Come on, that makes a difference. Jesus is telling us, you have the faith of God. What does that mean? You speak to a fig tree and it withers up and dies. That's what he's getting at. Another place he said that God has given you and everyone a measure, the measure of faith. You got it? Romans 12:3. For through the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think more highly of himself than he ought to think, but to think so as to have sound judgment, as God has allotted to each the measure of faith. Here's what I'm telling you. You have faith. You actually have the faith of God. You actually have God's faith. God's faith works for you. The problem is we just haven't known it. All right, let me show it to you. When you think of faith as something that you possess that works for you, that it's not you working, right? I'll hear it all the time. Religious bunch will say, well, faith without works. Faith without works. You got to have works, right? No, it says faith without works. Is your name Faith? No. You rest. Come on, this is a new covenant deal. You rest, and when you rest, faith works. The apostle said to Jesus, increase our faith. Well, that'd be a pretty good request, wouldn't you? Increase our faith, they said to him. And the Lord said, if you had faith like a mustard seed, they think they needed more. Increase it. Jesus saying, paraphrasing, you don't need more. If you had the tiniest little bit, the smallest seed there is, a mustard seed, if you just had that much. He said, you would say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and be planted in the sea, and it would obey you. Everybody say it. Yes. We think he's talking about the mulberry tree. But the subject of the statement is not the mulberry tree. The subject of the statement is faith. If you had faith, it would obey you. Saying the tree's not obeying you, faith is obeying you. Which of you, having a slave plowing and tending sheep, will say to him when he has come in from the field, come immediately and sit down to eat? But will he not say to him, prepare something for me to eat, and properly clothe yourself, and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterward you may eat and drink? What is he saying, right? The subject is still faith. They said, increase our faith, and Jesus is using this as a teaching moment. He's saying, look, faith, if you have the tiniest bit of faith, you'll speak to something, speak to the sycamore tree, tell it to be plucked up and cast into the sea. It will obey you. He immediately says, look, which of you having a servant? What's he saying here? Faith is your servant. Which of you having a servant, when he comes in from working in the field, do you tell him to sit down and you just start serving him? No. Just keep on telling him what to do. Faith is your servant. You have faith. You have a servant that's been sent to you as a gift of God, the faith of God, the same faith. You can, all right, let's read one more. All right, see. Everybody's all right? Here's a famous faith one, right? Hebrews 11 says this, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it the men of old gained approval. By faith we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. By faith Abel offered to God a better sacrifice. By faith, all these things. By faith Enoch was taken up so that he would not see death. Now faith, this is a Passion Translation, now faith brings our hopes into reality and becomes the foundation needed to acquire things we long for. It is all the evidence required to prove what is still unseen. Faith empowers us to see that the universe was created and beautifully coordinated by the power of God's words. He spoke, and the invisible realm gave birth to all that is seen. You got it? Now faith brings our hopes into reality. Here's what I'm saying. Why do we have to have a desire? Why do we have to have a say in the matter? Why do we have to have hope? Look, what is our desire? What is our hope? Because faith is a servant that's been sent to us, and faith is going out into the field every day, bringing home whatever it is that we're hoping for. Come on, you got it? It's like we have to have enough gumption in our own selves and our own identity to know the will of God for us and to know that God's good and to say, I have a good hope for a future. You could say definition of hope would be, for me, my simple way of thinking, speculation. How am I speculating the future to be, right? It's whatever you're speculating, whatever perspective that you have, that's what faith is bringing home. Come on, you got it? The faith of God. God had a thought, and He spoke, and faith went out and created from what was not seen, it became seen. What Jesus is telling you is the same servant of faith that God used to create the universe and to pull things from being unseen to seen is the same faith that you have. The same servant that serves you and works on your behalf is the same servant that God used and Jesus used in everything that they ever produced. He spoke to a tree, it withered up and died, and they said, whoa, the tree's gone. Jesus says, you have the faith of God. You have the same thing working for you. If you just had the littlest, tiniest bit of it, you could say to a tree and it'd be uprooted, and faith is going to obey you, and faith will produce whatever it is that you believe and hope in. What I'm trying to say, we can know God to the degree that we're persuaded of what His will is, what His heart is for us, that it's good, right? Come on, has He given us a hope? I can see now that I understand and know that God's good and that He loves me completely unconditionally and that He has great plans for me, that He wants me to be successful. He wants me to prosper. He wants me to be blessed. He wants me to be healed. You see, I understand that's His will for me. And when I understand that's His will for me and I say, you know what, that's what it's going to be. That's the way it's got to be. That's my hope. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm seeing it all right off the get-go, right? I mean, everything you can read on in that Hebrews 11, it says everything started out in the unseen. Everything seen was pulled out of the unseen by faith. Let me get this. Everything seen came out of the unseen by faith. Someone had a desire, and the desire, the hope, sent faith out into the field. Faith took what was unseen and pulled it into the seen. That's what you have. What's your desire? What's your request? Come on, we read it. Your request gives voice to faith. Your request gives voice to faith. What's our request? I mean, you heard it. You know what we believe? We believe what saved means: preserved, protected. Remember when we read a few weeks ago Deuteronomy, where it said, if you keep the law and keep all of the commandments, this is what's going to be. You're blessed in the city, you're blessed in the field, you're blessed going in, you're blessed going out. Everything you touch works, it goes for you. Come on, that's the will of God. Come on, it'd be obvious that if God laid out, here's this covenant that they all wanted, they agreed to, and they said, okay, if you keep the law, then this is the desire. Now, is it the will of God that everyone keep the law? Of course. Now, we're not under the law. We know that now. But still yet, if that was the covenant we were under, wouldn't it be the will of God that everybody keep the law? Of course. So what's the reward for keeping the law? You're completely blessed. Everything, all your offspring's blessed. Your herds are blessed. Your horses are blessed. Everything you touch is blessed. It's impossible for you to fail. Come on, well, if that's His desire for those that keep the law, how much more is it His desire for those that have come into this new covenant? That's not operating in reward for what you've done or not done. It's actually reward for what Jesus has done and not done. Come on, it's the will of God now for my offspring to be blessed and protected and saved and kept safe and sound. I've settled the fact and I believe in that, and my faith produces it. Come on, you guys with me? Faith is producing. Faith is working. I could tell you, you can read there in Hebrews, it'd say, by faith Enoch, by faith Abraham, by faith all these, by faith these, by faith these. I don't have to go to Hebrews. I can look around this room right here. I see miracles everywhere, and I can say, by faith, Caden, by faith this, by faith, by faith, by faith. All these things have happened because faith go. Come on, you can see it over and over. Jesus would say all the time, people come get hit. Remember the woman with the issue of blood? Said after hearing about Jesus. She had an issue of blood for 12 years. No doctors could help her. She'd spent all her money. She was broke. She was separated, segregated. She was as lowly place as you could possibly be. And she said this, after hearing about Jesus, if I just touch the hem of His garment, I will be made well. And you can read it, the tense of the thing, the connotation is she kept telling herself. She kept saying it over and over and over again. She kept giving voice. She didn't say, well, maybe. No, it said, if I touch His garment, I will be made well. She didn't stutter. She said, this is the desire. This is what my hope is. If I keep on telling myself, if I just touched His garment, I will be made well. If I just touch His garment, I will be made well. Watch this. Faith, her servant, went to work and somehow lined up all of the things that needed to be lined up. Her and him in the street on the same day. She reaches through the whole crowd and gets a hold of that garment, and boom, she's healed. Jesus says this, daughter, your faith made you well. You know, I see whenever there's seems like, man, something didn't go right. Something didn't go the way we thought it could go. I almost think that sometimes our faith was looking for somebody to make a decision and having a desire and settle on a request so that faith could go to work. Faith looking for a place to work. Faith works. Come on, let's just be sure. Here's one of my definitions of faith. Being absolutely sure of what the will of God is. I'm sure that it's the will of God for us to be healed. So faith is working all the time, and we see people healed all the time. Come on, it's not because we did any certain thing or whatever. We just got condemnation off our hearts, and faith came alive, and faith went to work and gave us a hope. Now that we have a hope, we can hope that it's God's will for people to be healed. And if that's our hope, faith goes to work, starts producing it. Come on, it's the world that says, don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up, because what if it don't happen? You can't be telling people it's the will of God for them to be healed, because that gives them false hope. Don't be getting people's hopes up, And yet the Bible says get your hopes sky high, because hope Faith is the substance of what you're hoping for. Faith is your servant that's going to go into what you don't see and pull it into the sea. Come on, can we just have a positive hope and say, I'm speculating that the will of God is good for me and my youngins and my place and my business and my school and my town and my community and my family's just blessed and that it's going our way and we're going to see victory upon victory and more victory. And man, I'm telling you, it's just faith go to work. According to your faith, Jesus said. According to your faith be it unto you. Now listen, I know it sounds like, oh, you're just saying it's all on me now? Well, kinda. I mean, yeah, but no. It's still up to Him. The hope that I have came from Him. He gave me the hope. He revealed Himself. He's revealing Himself continuously to us. To change, because I prayed this, I want to know God. I want to know who you really are and what you're really like. Keep removing the veil so that we can just see who you are. And the more we see and experience who you really are, the more we're changed and the more hope we have. And the more hope we have, the more faith can bring home. Does it mean we got it all immediately? No, I still got a lot to learn and a lot to grow in and all that. But it's His deal. I just said, okay, yeah, let's do it. Come on, have I got the right bunch? Has anybody got enough nerve to tell God? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go. I give up on everything I tried to figure out. You just show me who you are. When you show me who you are, I start to get a glimpse. Come on, Paul would say, looking as in a mirror, the same glory. You're being transformed into the same image. The more I understand and see who He is, the more I'm changed into who I am. You got it? I mean, I'm a son of God. I have the faith of God. Holy cow. Come on, whatever God decided on, He had a thought, spoke into the darkness, and faith produced everything that all of His desire. It said this, James said, a person of two opinions. What's two opinions? Somebody can't decide. Let's just decide. And be hard-headed about it and say, this is the will of God and I'm deciding on it. I've decided so much, though, that I even speak about it. And I'm going to watch faith do the work that it's designed to do, and I'm going to rest in the fact that I'm in covenant with God. He set up all this power and all this stuff. I'm just going to let faith go to work. I've decided that I'm blessed. I don't care what I see in the scene now. I've decided that I'm blessed. I've decided that it's the will of God for me to be healed, regardless of what I see in the sea. Faith is this, seeing what's not seen. When I see what's not seen, faith goes to the unseen and pulls the unseen into the sea. And now I see. All right, is everybody good? Let's just decide. Let's be wild, right? We talked about last week that Jesus was marveled at such great faith at a couple people, right? I'd be like, let's have so much wild faith. Like, let's just decide that Union County can be completely free and blessed and not be cursed and whatever, all this stuff that's been operating. Why not? Why not believe Union County can be free from drugs and addiction and mental illness and this just poverty-stricken mindset and religiousness and all this stuff? Come on, let's just decide. Jesus said, pray like this. The will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Well, we can just take that prayer, say, you know what, let's have faith for Union County. That it can be the will of God be done in Union County as it is in heaven. Come on, why not? Let's have them scratching their heads, doing news reports saying, what in the world is happening there? I'm going to tell you what's happening. There's some people that found out what covenant they're under, and they found out that they've been made right with God and righteousness is theirs as a free gift, and their identity started to be established in who God really is, and they got crazy enough to pray the prayer and say, God, we want to know you. Not this religious stuff that we've been told about you. I want to know you. And as they grow to know you, they get transformed themselves. They become the sons and daughters of God. I read this verse that said, be imitators of God. Well, why would He put that in there if He did not also put the capability to accomplish it? I'm just telling you, you have the faith of God. All I know to do now is to pray this. Them disciples, they said, they were close to praying the right prayer maybe. When they said, whoa, they marveled at what Jesus was accomplishing and said, whoa, increase our faith. That's what they said, you know. And I think maybe they could have tweaked it a little. If I can interpret what Jesus actually meant is, you don't need it to be increased. I just need to teach you how to use what you have. I think that'd be the prayer. Because I see over and over where they're in the middle of a storm, right? Storm's coming. They're professional fishermen, and they're in a boat, and they're freaking out. Storm's coming. Water's flooding the boat. They think they're going to die, and Jesus is asleep. Right? You remember the story? And they finally wake up Jesus, and they said, hey, we're going to die. Don't you care we're fixing to die? Jesus, He calmed the storm. The sea just immediately went quiet. Storm gone. Wind stops. And they're like, holy smokes. And Jesus says, where's your faith? Like, to me, He's implying, you didn't have to wake me up. You have the faith of God to stop the storm. You have the faith of God to calm the sea. Why are you waking me up? I'm just saying, let's tweak their prayer just a little bit and say, hey, you've given us the measure of faith. We possess the faith of God. Now, if you will, through the revelation of knowing you, teach us how to use the gift that you've given us. And as you do, we will see the world around us changed. Got it? All right. Everybody's good?
Please follow and share this message. And for more information, visit srcowboychurch.com.